Good afternoon, everyone. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here on the campus of Notre Dame. We are approaching 50 degrees today. It is sunny out, and when you live in South Bend, you're grateful for anything. And today is certainly a gorgeous day here on campus. Things are quiet, pristine, as the students are back home. But a lot of people are working behind the scenes, both on campus and remotely, to advance the work of the university. And certainly planning for next semester is very much underway. It's a season of Advent, and if you haven't already joined us for the Sacred Places Advent series, every day you receive a video from a different person on campus during Advent with a prayer offered from that sacred place. Go to the Alumni Association webpage and sign up, or just anywhere on social media, you'll see that it's put out on a daily basis, and chime in for that. Advent is a season of hope. It's a season of waiting, and we know that there are very few families out there who have not been affected in one way or another by cancer. And so today, we feel a special privilege of bringing somebody who is bringing hope to the battle against cancer. Her name is Sharon Stack. She's been a wonderful leader here at the university since 2011. She is the Kleiderer-Pezold Professor of Chemistry and Biochemistry. And importantly, she is the Anne F. Dunne and Elizabeth Riley Director of the Mike and Josie Harper Cancer Research Institute here on campus. Actually, they're physically located right across the street from the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center, and it's a partnership there in that property with Indiana University Medical Systems. So we are thrilled to welcome Sharon Stack. But before we do, I just want to say something about some of the names that I mentioned that are behind her titles. First, Mike and Josie Harper. Josie grew up in South Bend, and her husband, Mike, I never had a chance to know Josie as she died too young of cancer. But I got to know Mike, and what an absolutely wonderful, avuncular man, just oozing care before he passed away a few years back. And he gave us the money to provide the foundation, and he did it to honor his wife, Josie, who had passed away from cancer, and these were her roots, were South Bend. Other than that, there was no connection with the university. Mike was the chair and CEO of Conagra and led a very robust business life in Nebraska, Omaha, and et cetera. And then also two college roommates, Jimmy Dunne and Rich Riley. Both of their mothers passed away young of cancer. So the two college roommates, years later, came together and in about 2008 and made this gift in honor of both of their mothers to fund the directorship that Sharon holds. So let's turn it over to you, Sharon. Thank you so much for being with us today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to focusing on cancer research and what ultimately brought you to the University of Notre Dame?
Yeah, thanks, Lou. It's a pleasure to talk with you today and to all those that are listening out here. My background, as you mentioned, is as a biochemist, and I really love it when my students go into biochemistry because you can pretty much do anything you want. I started my career at my first faculty position was at Duke University Medical Center. I spent the bulk of my career at Northwestern Med School, just down the road or up the road, I guess, from South Bend, in where I was a program director in the Lurie Cancer Center for a dozen plus years. And then moved for a time to the University of Missouri Medical School, where I was vice chair of pathology there. And until Notre Dame came calling with this opportunity. And it was such an interesting opportunity to start a basic cancer research institute. And I actually grew up infused with Notre Dame because my dad was a graduate of Notre Dame, class of 51. Um, sorry. He was also a graduate of cancer, class of 86. So he didn't make it very long, through a very long lifetime. One sec.
Yeah.
I'm half Irish and half Polish, so I've got it on both sides.
Yeah.
Got the sappy gene on both sides. But so he never was able to see me come to his alma mater and do cancer institute work, but I feel like he's watching.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let me get myself off of this crying jag with a nice story about Mr. Mike Harper. I don't know if this is true or not, but Mr. Mike always used to tell me that his first job, as you mentioned, he became CEO of ConAgra, but his first job was actually as a concession stand worker in the football stadium at Notre Dame. And he used to say that what the concession stand consisted of at that time was a bonfire that was covered by a horse trough, and they dumped in a bunch of hot dogs. At kickoff, they lit the bonfire, and by halftime, the hot dogs were cooked, and that was the concession stand. That's how he got into the food service industry. So really interesting story. Like I say, I don't know if he was pulling my leg or not because he was quite the joker.
Yeah, he was.
Um, so yeah, so that's how I came to Notre Dame, and we're very pleased with this opportunity to start the Cancer Research Institute here.
Yeah, what a terrific way to come full circle and to honor your father back at his alma mater, and also what a blessing to have you as a biochemist who knows firsthand the impact of cancer on somebody who you love dearly, and to go in and to be able to fight to bring hope to so many others. So tell us about the Harper Cancer Research Institute. What is its scope? What is the impact of it in the roughly almost 10 years now, not quite 10 years since it started, and you've been the founding director. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. So Notre Dame has actually been involved in cancer research since the 70s with Dr. Morris Pollard. He did some really pioneering work in prostate cancer back then, and his models are still in use today. And I think recognizing that really every family is affected by cancer in one way or another. If it's not somebody in your immediate family like my father, it may be a close friend or a family member. So everyone is unfortunately impacted by cancer. And I think recognizing this, Notre Dame decided to put some of the intellectual power that's present on campus and focus it more into a cancer direction. So what we have done here is to really encourage faculty from across campus throughout the College of Sciences and the College of Arts and Letters, College of Engineering, and some foray into the College of Arts and Letters as well, to really come together and work in collaborative teams working on cancer-specific problems. I think a good seasonal analogy might be um, at Harper, we're baking Christmas cookies, but you can make a sugar cookie and it's delicious and everything. But once you add the icing and the sprinkles, you've got something really special. And that's what we're trying to do with our research teams is bring the cookies and the icing and the sprinkles and bring them all together and really make a really good product that fights cancer in a very different way. We were super excited when Provost Miranda was recruited to Notre Dame because our model fits very well within the vision that she's articulated for growth of the STEM disciplines at Notre Dame and the growth of interdisciplinary research as well. So I think we intend to grow along with her together and with a shared vision there.
Fantastic. I've had trouble getting over your metaphor there. I'm getting hungry for Christmas cookies and the icing on it and everything else. So many people don't know in the Notre Dame family about the Harper Cancer Research Institute. And when they learn about it, they're surprised to hear that we have an institute, combating, cancer and trying to find cures when we don't have a medical school. And when you look at your past appointments, you've been at 3 different, preeminent medical institutions. can Notre Dame do great cancer research without a medical school? And why would you leave the medical school background to come and work at a basic cancer research institute?
That's a great question, though. I think the best answer is it's because research cures cancer. It's everything comes from basic research. Everything that we do, every advance that we have. I think a good example that we're living through right now with COVID-19 is the showing really the power of basic research, where back in probably January of 2020, the sequence of the virus was published. And since then, basic researchers have gotten together and come up with ways to understand how this virus replicates and how to fight the virus. And the vaccine was just introduced yesterday in the UK. So I think that is a great current example that highlights the power of basic research. What we're really trying to do is to bring together groups from all over campus and put them on problems that are multidisciplinary in nature that really impact cancer detection, trying to understand how cancer grows and spreads, and ultimately how to treat cancer. And we're involving not just professors, postdocs, graduate students, and actually thousands of undergraduate students have also passed through Harper Labs on their way to the next phase in their career.
Mhm. So your model is to bring together interdisciplinary teams and to support cutting edge research that's going to lead to breakthroughs in all of the myriad of different cancers that are out there. Can you give us some examples of some cutting edge research that has been pioneered or is being pioneered here on campus through these partnerships?
I could talk about this all day.
Okay, good.
So we have a great program that has been supported by the Walther Cancer Foundation to date, and they're so pleased with the outcome of this program that they want to endow the program in perpetuity. So we have a fundraising match with them that we're about 1.1 million away to having a $10 million endowment for our Cancer Cure Ventures program to be in existence forever. Basically, they were impressed with the program because we have a 12-to-1 return on investment of dollars that go into our research on campus here that brings federal dollars back to Notre Dame. That the federal dollars that have come back to Notre Dame have been in the magnitude of tens of millions of dollars that have come from this research. But really what I want to talk about is the impact of these projects, these Cancer Cure Ventures projects. A couple examples that come readily to mind are in the breast cancer area. We have several really talented teams working in breast cancer. And we've had basic researchers have made great strides in breast cancer over the last 30 or so years, so that the 5-year survival from breast cancer is really high now. It's in the 90%. But some women will then recur. And when they recur, they have really complicated metastatic disease in the bone or in the brain. And these are much harder to treat. So we've had supported a couple of teams to look at these two aspects of breast cancer recurrence. And one example is Lori Littlepage, who is a biochemist and cancer biologist, and Glenn Niebuhr, who's a mechanical engineer. So Glenn studies bones. He was interested in osteoporosis, and he came up with a way to keep bones alive, bone fragments alive in the lab for an extended period of time, 6-8 weeks, excuse me, something like that. And the way he did that was really clever because he knows that bones are mechanically active for a living. You're walking on them, you're pounding on them. They need to be mechanically stimulated to function properly. So he came up with what he called a bone bioreactor, and this allowed him to keep bones alive in the lab for weeks. And that was great. And Glenn is interested in osteoporosis normally, which is also a very important problem. But then enter Lori into the equation. When they came together, Lori's interested in breast cancer metastasis to bone. When they came together, Lori could use her cancer knowledge and put it into Glenn's bone bioreactor system. And what they were able to discover then was that cancer cells living in the bone become dormant. This is what actually happens in people, but nobody had been able to model that in the lab before.
Mhm.
And probably more exciting, more relevant to eventual patient care is that Lori and Glenn discovered a pathway that breast cancer cells use to escape dormancy and to start growing those metastatic lesions that cause super painful complications for women with breast cancer recurrence. So the next exciting phase of this project that's ongoing as we speak. So that took multiple years, but the next exciting phase of the project is they are developing methods to screen for drugs that block that, so that those cancer cells, if they escape from dormancy, they can be killed right away before they establish painful metastases. So that's
Fascinating, fascinating. Before you get into another example, let me ask a personal question, if I could, about that one. 16 years ago, my dad died at a young age of multiple myeloma, which is, cancer, as you well know, located in the bone marrow. And end of life stages is very difficult because your bones begin to break. Would this type of research offer any hope for that type of bone cancer, multiple myeloma?
We hope that that's one of the aspects that they're investigating, multiple myeloma and also some types of osteosarcoma as well. We hope that this will have broad applicability, and that's one benefit of basic cancer research. That something we discover in one cancer type might be applicable to some completely different type of cancer. So that is definitely an aspect that they're looking into right
Great,
now.
great. How about some other examples? Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
So another example is another great project in breast cancer, and it's looking at metastasis to the brain. And again, like bone, brain is an organ that's hard to image. And we have another great team that's led by Suyan Zhang in the biology department, who's a breast cancer researcher interested in brain metastasis. And what he came up with, he assembled a Cancer Cure Ventures team to come up with a way in mouse models of brain mets to make the brain clear. You may not know it, but most of your brain is fat. So they could remove all the fat from the brain. And now it's optically clear, so they could image through it with a microscope. And Suyan and his team have
That
some.
explains a lot in my case. I did not know that, but that helps me to understand some of my blurred thinking of late. So that's good.
They came up with a way to image through the brain, and they have some fabulous movies of looking at breast cancer cells that have metastasized to the brain. And because they could see that, so that technology was assisted by Jeremy Zartman in chemical and biomolecular engineering. And what they found, excuse me, what they found in these brain lesions was that I talk with my hands. I don't know if you can see my
Yeah,
hands or not,
yeah.
but they had a small mass of tumor cells, maybe 10 or 20 cells, and it was wrapped by these brain cells that are called astrocytes. These are normal cells in the brain. And the images showed wherever there was a small lesion, these astrocytes were always wrapping around it. And what they've discovered during their research, and this was assisted by Danny Chen and computer science and engineering, is that the astrocytes were talking to the breast cancer cells and saying, hey, act like a brain cell, don't act like a breast cell. Then you can survive up here, you can grow and you can thrive up here in our brain neighborhood. And again, nobody had ever seen that type of interaction before. Now that they've seen it and now that they understand how that type of communication works, again, they're at the next stage of trying to target it to come up with new therapeutics that could combat brain metastasis, and working on that with Brandon Ashfeld in chemistry. So that's an example of a big multidisciplinary team.
So two questions that come from that anecdote. One is, when you said that about 90% of breast cancer patients are able to find kind of survival, right now, does that include those breast cancer patients whose, as you just evidenced in your first two examples, their cancer is metastasized and it's gone to other parts of the body, or are they excluded? They're not dying of breast cancer. It starts there, but they're dying of some other cancer. Does that lower the rate of breast cancer survival, or how do you factor that?
So we've had really, because of basic research, to be honest, we've had not exclusively Harper research, but historically huge increases in survival of breast cancer, and this is because of early detection. So
Okay.
mammography. So most women are now most women in the United States, at least, are now diagnosed before their cancer has already spread to these other organs. When it's spread to the other organs, it becomes much more complicated to treat and to cure. So that's why we're focusing on those later aspects, because they're a lot more complex. But the early detection is what's really driving those increases in survival.
But if I have breast cancer and it metastasizes to the brain and I die from the brain cancer, does that count as dying from breast cancer or brain cancer?
That would still be a breast cancer. Yeah.
That still would be. So even when you include all of that, the survival rate is still 90%. And a large reason for that has to do with early detection and the basic research. The second question I have coming out of that is this breakthrough that you just talked about, talking to the brain cells and getting them to act like brain cells or whatever. How is that disseminated? Do other medical schools, is it through journals? How do they learn about this breakthrough? And then how do they incorporate that into their research around the country and world?
Yeah, so all of these teams have published their research, and really both of these projects have gone into very high profile journals that are international journals. So this information is out there, and others can build on what we've learned. That's the whole idea of basic research, that we put in a brick, somebody else puts in a brick, somebody else puts in a brick, and we eventually get to where we need to be.
Got it.
While we're on the topic of early detection too, that reminds me of another project that's in its a little bit earlier stages, but is super interesting, from Tom O'Sullivan in electrical engineering. And he's using near infrared imaging technology to come up with essentially, it reminds me of the early days of Star Trek, like a handheld device that can be used to image breast tissue and look for early stage lesions, potentially at home. And he's working on this. He's very personally motivated. His wife was diagnosed with breast cancer at a young age, right before they were to be married, and they put off their wedding so that she could undergo treatment. She's very fine right now. They have 4 beautiful children. So, but this Tom is really making great headway with this device. And so it has potential for use as a home, in between appointments, in between mammograms, or if you're undergoing treatment, as a home screening. But the thing that excites me about it the most personally is that it could also potentially be used as a point of care diagnostic, and somewhere where there's no access to mammography. So if you're in a low resource setting where you don't have mammography to begin with, this could also be transformative in women in low and middle income countries that don't have the advantages that we do.
Terrific. So, to go back to, I'm going to put my development hat back on for a second. You said there's, in this 10 million match, there's 1.1 million that remains from the Walter Cancer Foundation, which is based out of Indianapolis, which has seen the impressive credentials of the Notre Dame teams and the impact on cancer, as you highlighted before. So if somebody wanted to make a gift, would that be matched dollar for dollar? And what happens if you go beyond the 10 million match? Is there a chance that we could match beyond that?
Yeah, so Walter is matching the funds, and they have indicated a willingness to match beyond the 10 million. And again, that money, most of that endowment will go to support this Cancer Cures Venture program, because when we first started the program, Lou, to be honest, we funded 2 projects because we got 2 applications. Both those projects turned out to be great and very successful. But now we can fund 1 to 2 projects a year, but we have 10 or 15. So there's always more great ideas than we have the money to seed those Cancer Cure Ventures projects. So there's always the opportunity to do that. And as I indicated, we've been collecting data on these. Because if Suyan had said, oh, okay, I'm going to go look in the brain and I'm going to see these astrocytes hugging these brain cancer cells, if he would have said that in a grant application, the reviewers would have been like, yeah, right, you are. But because we seeded the project, they were able to have that strong preliminary data, and he's able to then get successful grant applications, and that brings a lot of money back to the university. It brings prestige to the university as well. So with the 12-to-1 return on investment, I think we're picking the right ideas, and we have a lot more to choose from that we unfortunately can't fund at the moment.
And ultimately, those additional resources that are levered then help us have an impact
Exactly.
in the lives and the families that are experiencing, cancer firsthand. So what's next for the Harper Cancer Research Institute, and what's your vision going forward?
Yeah, we have a lot of big plans. I'll tell you a few of them. Um, we have plans to go for National Cancer Institute designation, and I'll tell you what that is in a second. We're also building a Center for Investigative Medicine, and we're very interested in getting more involved in cancer disparities. So to start with the National Cancer Institute, so there are 7 universities in the country that have National Cancer Institute Basic Cancer Center designation. And this is essentially, we would apply to join this extremely elite club of cancer institutes nationwide. That would then be basically the seal of approval for the quality of our cancer research. We are confident at this moment right now that we could be very competitive in this space. Our research is as good as, if not better, than any of the currently funded centers. The impact of that would be that it brings increased recognition, not just to our researchers here in our Cancer Institute, but also to the university overall. It also brings increased opportunities. There's lots of pools of grant money that you can only apply for if you have this designation already. It brings enhanced philanthropy, and it also brings increased opportunities to collaborate with pharma and biotech so that these observations like Lori and Soyan are making can go from the lab eventually more readily into impacting patient care.
What's the timeline for that? How do you apply for it? Do you wait for them to recognize you? What do you think is a realistic time horizon for Notre Dame to get that designation and have the impact on taking our research even to the next level?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So to be able to apply, we have to meet certain threshold standards of faculty members and funding. So we still need to do a bit more recruiting to up our numbers of cancer-involved faculty. The sort of the homegrown folks that I described to you already are doing very well and
Mhm.
helping us meet those standards. But with the right recruiting, we could have an application in within a 5-year time frame. Likely would have to resubmit one time. So I would say, the 5 to 7 year time frame, if we could recruit the right faculty so that we meet the threshold for the application standards. As I mentioned, I feel confident we could be very competitive. I have experience in this area and writing these type of grants from
Mhm.
Northwestern. I'm also on the advisory boards of several National Cancer Institute designated cancer centers. So um, I feel like, to be honest, when Bob Bernhard, the vice president for research, was recruiting me here, I said, if this is a goal, I'm not coming because I didn't think it was possible. But given the outstanding research and the cooperation and collaboration and the creativity of these innovative projects that have come up, it's transformed my thinking, and I think that we really should take that next step.
That's terrific. That's a wonderful development. Tell us a little bit more about the Center for Investigational Medicine. What does that entail?
Yeah, so that's again currently in development. So thanks to the Harper Family Foundation, we were able to complete the first phase of that, which is basically to get the floor and the walls and the HVAC into the lower level of Harper Hall and finish that space off. The next phase is that we would need is to have sophisticated equipment and personnel. But what we want to do there is to take the sophisticated preclinical cancer models that we have in our labs throughout campus. So in breast cancer, as I've already described, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, oral cancer, leukemia, et cetera, house those preclinical models there and make a collaborative space where it's easy for Notre Dame chemists or others to test their novel therapies in relevant cancer models and even highly sophisticated cancer models like in brain mets or bone mets. That would then be a bridge that would make it much easier for that basic laboratory research to get picked up by a pharma or a biotech company and get in more immediately into patient care. So
So
we need.
does that mean that you create the physical space and you bring in the right equipment so when they get to a certain level in their own labs, they can bring it over and put it through this process?
Exactly, exactly. So we have we have the space shelled out, but we need the equipment and the personnel to do this, and it would involve expertise that we already have on campus, but really unifying it and simplifying it. I've been asked by people, well, why don't you just farm that out to a clinical research organization or something like that? And my answer to that is, number one, because we do it really well here. Number
Mhm.
two, we're an educational institution. So we are also in the business of providing educational opportunities. Our students can be the ones that are testing these novel therapeutics that might go on to transform someone's life and save someone's
Mhm.
life. So we want that opportunity to be able to be here on campus for our students.
How much would that cost to fully equip this Center for Investigational Medicine?
The equipment would probably be in about the 10 million range, and with another 10 million for the kind of endow the personnel to run the
Got it.
center.
Okay, so that's a big idea
It's a
that
big
you have
idea.
there.
It's a big
So,
idea, but
so
it's an important one.
how about a very important one? How about the third pillar that you talked about, addressing the disparities in cancer care, and this being a priority? What does that entail?
Yeah, so that's a really a two-part um, project, and it's not so the two parts are distinctive, but they're related. So one part is looking at cancer disparities in populations that are underrepresented in research, and another part is looking at the disparities in the STEM pipeline. So for the first part, we've been thinking about this for a long time. Um, and looking, with Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si that came out just 5 years ago now, he was talking about what he referred to as the ecological debt. This ecological debt and what we've done to the world with pollution and whatnot really disproportionately affects populations in low resource settings and really contributes greatly to the inequities and cancer burden in those populations. And I feel like as Notre Dame, it's our moral obligation to do something about this. There's not a lot of people working in understanding cancer causes and cancer treatments and cancer cures in these populations. And if we don't do it, who better to do it than Notre Dame, I guess, is
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to say. We have been working in, so the cancer disparities field in general is relatively small, and researchers look and populations in Africa, some parts of Asia, and parts of Latin America. We have been focusing our initial efforts in Latin America. Number one, because there's very little scientific research in that area, so it's an unmet scientific question. Number
Mhm.
two, because those populations tend to be predominantly Catholic, so it's a
Mhm.
good fit with the university. So we're really hoping to expand research there. We have some ongoing projects that are starting and looking at disparities in pediatric leukemia. We were in very close discussion with some partners to look at breast cancer in Latin America that got put on hold because of the pandemic, but we're definitely interested in picking that up. But we really, knowing what the racial or ethnic differences are and specific mutations in cancer would help us, would enable us to target therapeutics to that particular population. If you and I both have a skin cancer, you might have mutation A and I might have mutation B that's causing that cancer. And
Mhm.
so if I take the drug for mutation A, it's not going to do anything because I have mutation B. So that's the
Mhm.
idea about looking at racial and ethnic disparities in cancer incidence. And I think, as I say, it's our moral obligation to really focus some of our intellectual efforts in that area.
That's terrific. I think that's a great path to go because we know that, especially when we look globally, there's a huge inequity and the type of care that you get. In this case, cancer is widespread, and we need to do more. And who better than Notre Dame, as you suggest? So I know you work long hours, and you're very passionate about finding cures for the many cancers that are out there, and reducing the environmental impacts on those that are especially affected. What do you do for fun? I've heard that you and your husband raise llamas and alpacas. And can you tell us a little bit about that? That seems like a strange hobby.
Yeah, so we got into that because he didn't want to do so much mowing. So
I
when
love it. It
we
sounds
bought,
like my husbandry thinking right there. Yeah.
but they're actually all rescue animals, and they eat the grass, so that takes up about half the lawn that he doesn't have to mow. They also contribute to my other hobby, which is gardening. So the llama poo makes excellent fertilizer that we share with anybody that wants it. So we get great tomatoes and basil
I've
out of
been
it.
looking for Christmas gifts for my wife, so maybe
There
some
you go.
llama poo, would be great. Yeah.
The other, if we could go back to the diversity question for a second, I forgot to mention
Oh,
some of the STEM pipeline opportunities that we're pursuing. So this is another aspect of what we're doing that we've been thinking about for quite a while, and we want to. There's very little diversity in the STEM pipeline in terms of students that are coming into sciences and technology, engineering, and math. And I think we are in the position to do something about that as well. So we want to look on multiple levels. At the graduate student and postdoctoral level would be one phase. Undergraduates and post-baccalaureate level would be another phase. And then the K-12 level with high school students and their teachers would be another phase. We're doing well at the graduate student level, and to get these programs off the ground, there are federal grants we can apply for, but again, we have to show that we can do it first and collect data and show that it's successful. We're doing that at the graduate level now, again, with a project supported by the Walther Foundation,
mhm.
and are ready to put that into a federal grant. But we really want to bring the undergrads and the K-12 high school students and their teachers into the program, and start some pilot programs and collect data and show that we can do this and help to increase the diversity in the STEM pipeline. We'd like to potentially involve ACE students and the STEM scholars in the College of Science potentially in here, have these trainees working in the tissue bank at Harper. So there's a lot of really great opportunities for them to have really impactful research. And I think it's the right thing to do, again, increasing diversity in the STEM cancer workforce, because a more diverse population brings diversity in terms of experiences, in terms of approaches to science, in terms of their ideas, and it really elevates us all if we focus our efforts that way.
Sounds fantastic, Sharon. How about any parting shots? One final question, that we open up the program, we talked about the Advent season liturgically is all about hope. And there's many families that I'm sure have either lost loved ones to cancer, or who may be battling cancer right now. What words of hope could you offer to those families?
Yeah, I would just like to tell you that research cures cancer. We're working on it every day. We have some great work going on right here at Notre Dame in partnership with other universities around the country and around the world. So just keep the focus that important research is going on here, and research cures cancer. And we're here.
Fantastic. Thank you for your leadership. Where we were 10 years ago and where we are today is it's an incredible story. And we know that yet there's still a lot of work to be done. And it's all about, I know this under your leadership, it's bringing the great interdisciplinary intellectual pursuits together for one primary reason: so they can help improve lives and offer hope. And you carry not just that intellectual ethic for service, but the compassion, the heart, the intimacy, and you're a rare combination. And we're really blessed to have you as a leader of the Mike and Josie Harper Cancer Research Institute. So thank you so much for your service, Sharon, and our prayers are with you and with your team. We know that through COVID-19, there's a lot of people working on the front lines, but it's the researchers behind the scenes that are going to ultimately offer the cure, the long-lasting hope. And that's the work that you guys are doing behind the scenes right now on multiple levels of addressing cancer. So thank you for that, and applause to all the people working behind the scenes. Next week, we're going to be joined at the same time by Brian Ritchie. Brian is the Vice President and the Kathy and John Martin Associate Provost for Innovation. He oversees the Idea Center. So we're focusing on that theme next week. Again, thank you, Sharon. We always close these programs by inviting everyone who's with us, either in their homes or workplaces, to join together with a prayer to Our Lady, the patroness of this university. So together we say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care. God bless. Go Irish. And thank you for all you do for Notre Dame and beyond.